UCI, ITA, EOI, draw, which is not a raffle draw, by the way. We also have POF, LMIA, NOC, then for timeline sharing, we see ADR, AR, PPR, COPR, OMG, we have a lot of letters. Hey friends, how's it going? No, we are not jumbling our ABCs, but are you getting confused with all these letters and terms? I got you here. Let me try to define and explain some of these common terms. Anyway, if you are new here, hey, my name is Kimmy. My family moved from the Philippines to Canada and landed as permanent residents last December of 2022 through the SINP and Express Entry. I have shared videos about our immigration process, and most recently, I have been sharing about how our life is now as immigrants here in Canada. And if you have been here before, welcome back and thank you so much for coming along. When you are applying or wanting to apply for immigration here in Canada, there will be millions of terms used for application, to the process and down to the status updates of our fellow applicants. And I get it if you may get overwhelmed with it or may get confused about some terms. Most of these terms may be new to us. It may just be used for a certain immigration process, and others may have a different meaning to what we are used to. So, let me try to explain today some of the most common terms used, starting with UCI. UCI means Unique Client Identifier, also known as the Client Identification Number. This is the 8 or 10-digit number that is assigned to you once you start creating your profile or begin any application with IRCC. Think of this like it is your student ID or employee ID. In this case, this is your immigration ID. Whenever you start your application with IRCC or the Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, whether you are applying for immigration, tourist visa, or work permit, and all others, you will be assigned a UCI. Next is CRS, or the Comprehensive Ranking System. This is a merit-based point system used by the Canadian government to determine a candidate's qualification to get invited to apply or those who will receive the ITA. Usually, there will be a required CRS points that you should meet for you to be invited for application depending on your pathway. So, what is ITA, or the invitation to apply? This is what you receive when you meet your pathway's required CRS points. You will be receiving a correspondence or a letter from the IRCC for your ITA. It usually includes instructions on how to proceed with your application, and if your application is online, your account will be automatically updated. It will be automatically updated as well for you to receive the ITA and proceed with your application. Next is the CRS, or the Comprehensive Ranking System. This is a merit-based point system used by the Canadian government to determine a candidate's qualification to get invited to apply, or to those who will receive the ITA. Usually, there will be a required CRS points that you should meet before you get invited for application, depending on your pathway. So, what is ITA? ITA means Invitation to Apply. This is what you receive when you meet your pathway's required CRS points. You will be receiving a correspondence or a letter from the IRCC for your ITA. It usually includes instructions on how to proceed with your application, and if your application is online, your account will automatically be updated as well for you to receive the ITA and proceed with your application. In some pathways, or in some cases, you will be needing to create an EOI or your expression of interest. This is not a letter with a format that you should follow. This is usually done online. This is similar to creating an Express Entry profile or an application profile. EOI is usually done or created for some Canadian provincial pathways. For example, with SINP, or the Saskatchewan Immigrant Nominee Program, which was our family's immigration pathway, I created my EOI online by creating or filling out the online EOI form. Ideally, you should have your ECA and language test result available to you, and you must meet the required CRS points for you to be able to successfully create and submit your EOI. Because if you do not meet the CRS points, usually you won't be able to proceed with the creation of EOI. And once your CRS points meet the next draw's minimum points required, then you shall be receiving your ITA. Now, what is a draw? This is not a lucky raffle draw like the lottery. For my fellow kababayans from the Philippines, hindi po ito bunutan or swertihan. Hindi ito binubunot ng galing sa tambiolo. If your pathway is based on CRS points, it is based on your points and other criterias and not based on a lucky draw. Let's define this one. Draw is the process of selecting the candidates to be invited and usually used for a permanent resident pathway. There are 3 types of draws. First is the general rounds, which invites or sends out ITA to those who meet the required CRS points. But lately, I haven't heard or seen this type of draw. It could probably be because of the tighter immigration review that they are implementing right now. I don't know, but I've been hearing some sad news about immigration or even on work permit applications lately. But that's a different topic. Anyway, second is the program-specific draw, and third is the category-specific draw. These 2 draws are similar, on which it sends out ITAs to those who meet the required CRS points and meet the specific requirement based on specific program or category. Examples of this are pilot programs and economic growth programs. These 2 are the most common draws that are happening lately based on what I hear and see. With these types of draws, you should or you need to meet the CRS points required and the NOC or program-specific requirement to be able to receive an ITA. One example for economic requirement is for you to be able to receive an ITA, you should meet the required minimum CRS points and your NOC should be included on the in-demand occupations. This means that even if you meet the required CRS points, but your NOC is not included on the chosen or in-demand NOCs for that draw, then you won't be receiving an ITA. Just to be clear again, this is not a raffle draw like the lottery, which is out of luck. You will be picked in a draw when you meet the set criteria or parameters of this specific draw. Next is the pool. The swimming pool. Just kidding. I guess you saw the lame joke coming. Anyway, the pool, or commonly heard as pool of candidates or pool of applicants, this is just a term used to collectively describe the group of either the candidates or applicants. And yes, candidate is different from an applicant. They could be similar, but with the immigration process, a candidate is the term used if you are just in the pool waiting for an invite or application for your application to be processed. This means that you are a candidate when you have created your profile or submitted your expression of interest. You only become an applicant once you have received an ITA and submitted a complete application to IRCC. I mentioned ECA and language assessment test earlier. Let me explain what ECA is. ECA stands for Educational Credential Assessment. This is a document that you get to verify your foreign certificate, diploma, or degree if it is valid or is equal to a Canadian one, or if it is equivalent to a Canadian one. You might also be familiar with WES or ICAS. Those are some of the organizations where you apply and get your ECA. When you hear someone ask you, do you have WES or did you get your WES? They may be pertaining mainly about the ECA. ECA is the document that you get from one of these 5 designated organizations. So yes, there are 5 designated organizations and where to get your ECA from. So first is WES, or the World Education Services. And then next is ICAS, or International Qualifications Assessment Service. And then third is from the Comparative Education Service of University of Toronto. And then fourth is we have International Credential Assessment Service of Canada. And fifth is the Credential Evaluation Service from BCIT, or the British Columbia Institute of Technology. So next is Language Assessment Test. This is a requirement to test your English language proficiency. The test result is what you provide or submit to prove that you can communicate in English, which is one of the primary languages used in Canada alongside with French. There are three types of language assessment tests that Canada accepts. The most common is the IELTS, or the International English Language Testing System, and the CELPIP, which means CELPIP means Canadian English Language Proficiency Index Program. And the third and last English test that Canada accepts is the PTE Core, or the Pearson Test of English. Pearson Test of English Core. Let's move on with NOC. NOC stands for National Occupational Classification. This is a standardized system to classify occupations in Canada. NOC is not just used for immigration, it is also used to categorize, evaluate, and identify key areas on the labor market in Canada. With immigration, NOC is mostly used as a reference to assess if your existing skill set or job experience will fit the current labor market requirement here in Canada. It is more on the transferability of your skills and experience from your home country to Canada. And that is why it is important for you to match your job experience with the correct NOC. You must use or pick the right NOC, because the immigration officers should be able to match your NOC with your proof of work experience. And related to NOC is the TEER category, or tier level. TEER means training, education, experience, and responsibilities. This is a category under the NOC to identify or categorize your skill type or level of job experience. There are 6 different tiers incorporated with the NOCs. First tier is Tier 0, which is generally for management occupations. And then Tier 1 is for occupations that requires a university degree. Tier 2 is generally for supervisory positions or jobs that require more than 2 years of apprenticeship training or diploma course. And then Tier 3, kind of similar, but this is generally jobs that require less than 2 years of apprenticeship training or diploma course. And then Tier 4 is generally for jobs that require a high school diploma. And then the last tier will be Tier 5, which is generally for the occupations that usually need short-term work demonstration and no formal education is needed for this one. Your NOC number will have a tier code incorporated with it. For example, if you are a financial manager, your NOC will be 10010, meaning this code is Tier 0, which is the second number indicated, which is indicated on the second number. And if your job experience is administrative assistant, your NOC is 13110, which falls under Tier 3. Now, if you are from the Philippines, you might be confused with this because admin assistants back home needs to have a college degree or must be a university graduate before you get hired. You will be thinking your NOC will be under Tier 1 or Tier 2. But nope, with Canada's NOC, this is under Tier 3. So just a tip when searching for your NOC, try typing in or searching using your main job description or duty. And I have the links for both NOC and Tier guidelines on the description below for further reference. Let's move on with LMIA, or the Labor Market Impact Assessment. You might be hearing this. I'm looking for an employer with LMIA from people who are seeking for employment in Canada. So to explain it simply, LMIA comes with a Canadian work permit for the employee. Canadian employers can file for an LMIA or request for an LMIA if they cannot fill a position or hire an employee with Canadian citizenship or residency. With LMIA, with an LMIA grant to the employer, they are allowed to directly hire an employee without Canadian status, which then the employee can be or will be receiving a Canadian work permit. In my opinion, for those who are wanting to work here in Canada, this is the easiest way. However, employers with LMIA is pretty hard to find nowadays. Moving on, we have the proof of funds, or the POF. Proof of funds are mostly required for PR or permanent resident applications. Other pathways may require for this one too. POF is a document that could be in the form of a bank statement, GICs, stocks or bonds, or anything that will show that you have sufficient funds to be able to support your expenses and your family's expenses when you settle in or move into Canada. If you have a family, your POF should be able to support your whole family, whether they are coming with you to Canada or not. Your POF should also be accessible to you anytime and must meet the required amount based on the size of your family. Also, it is ideal that you have your POF ready 3 months before you submit your application, depending on your pathway's requirement. In most cases, your required POF amount needs to be the average amount maintained in your account for 90 days before submission of application. For example, if you are submitting a bank statement and your POF is 20,000 Canadian dollars, or the required POF is 20,000 Canadian dollars, your monthly average balance should not be below 20,000 Canadian dollars for 3 months. If your bank account is in a different currency, make sure to factor in the fluctuation on the exchange rates or the value of Canadian dollar versus your bank account's currency. Another is common law partner. Of course, we know about marriage, spouse, husband, or wife, but what is a common law partner? Common law partner is also known as your live-in partner. To become a common law partner, to be recognized as a common law partner, you both should have been living together or cohabiting, as per the Canadian definition, in the past 12 months or 1 year. When you are in a common law relationship, you generally get legal rights on property, support, and benefits. If you are applying or wanting to apply for Canada, you can declare your common law partner as your dependent as long as you both meet all the requirements. I think we are all done with the list of terms used on the application process, but I have another list of terms here that are also used on the application process, but mostly these are the terms that are used on profile updates that you see on Facebook or other social media platforms when the applicants are sharing their application experience and timeline. Let's start with DIY. Of course, this means do it yourself, but this is the term used when you apply for any Canadian pathway and you do not use the services of any representative like immigration lawyers or agency representatives. I also mentioned pathway multiple times, but let us define pathway. Pathway is a term we use to describe what type of program or opportunity you are applying for to Canada. It could be provincial nominee program, it could be family sponsorship, it could be express entry, one of the many pilot programs as well, and all others. So those are the pathways. Anyway, so when you identified your pathway, created your profile, received your ITA, and once you submit your application with your ITA, you will be receiving a correspondence or a letter that is called AOR, or the Acknowledgement of Receipt. AOR is the official letter that confirms the receipt of your application. It includes your UCI, date of your application or date when your application is received, and this is the start date of your application. So when you receive your AOR, that means your application is already in process, and the date on your AOR is the start of your in-process date. So you can start counting the days already. Next, we have ADR, or Additional Document Reference. Not everybody receives this ADR. ADR is sent through a correspondence or a letter to officially request for additional documents as deemed necessary by the immigration officer who is reviewing your file. If your application is done online, everything will be sent to you online, and the instructions on how to submit and what to provide will be specified and detailed on that letter as well. Another is medical schedule. So when you see this one, this is another step on your application process. You will also be receiving a letter to give you all the instructions and information with a time frame on when you should get the required medical examinations and where to get it. We also have the biometric instruction letter, or the biometric request. This is a step where you receive, through another correspondence or letter, the instructions for you to book an appointment with VFS. VFS Global is a company that provides visa processing services. When you submit for biometrics, this is the step where your background checks will begin. Another term that we see with timeline update is PPR, or the passport request. This is another correspondence with the instructions for you to send your passport for visa stamping. This is also referred to as ready for visa stage or whatever that's called. And if you are applying for permanent residence, this is the most precious document. This is the COPR, or the Certificate of Permanent Residence. This is the last document that you will be receiving. If your application is online, you will not receive this online. You will receive this in the mail, and the COPR is the document that confirms your approval. And once you land in Canada, you are already a permanent resident. And the COPR is a document that you present together with your passport to the immigration officer when you land in Canada. Everything I've explained today is based on my personal experience and own understanding, as I also went through the immigration process 2 years ago. And if you are in the process of applying to Canada or researching ways to migrate or work here, I know some terms and procedures might be overwhelming. So I hope this video helps clarify some of the terms and makes the process easier to understand. And I guess that's a wrap. Thank you guys so much for watching, and please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I hope you guys stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy, and always choose to be kind. Bye!